Welcome to the Cutter Family Cruise 2015. This time with 3 generations of Cutters and a Quiggle. Like last year, our journey began in Miami, Florida after a long cross-country flight that started on Wednesday, March 4th and didn't have us arriving in Miami until Thursday morning. After a quick breakfast, we checked in at the docks and boarded our home away from home for the next 10 days, the glorious Riviera. Mike and Autumn headed up to the swimming pool on deck 12 and, I guess they were pretty tired. Grandma and Grandpa settled into some lounge chairs to relax for a bit, and Mike and Autumn were really tired. After their snooze, Mike spent some time talking to Grandpa, while Grandma showed Autumn some interesting stuff about our ship. Oceania eventually let us check into our rooms. Here is our comfortable stateroom. Autumn and Mike's room was also nice, but a little bit smaller. Then it was time for a safety drill where they showed us how to put on a life vest. Oh yeah, I make this look good. A few hours later, we headed up to deck 12 for a little Bon Voyage party. Was the Bon Voyage cocktail any good? Apparently it was quite tasty. The band played some lively tunes as we pulled away from the dock and we watched the Miami skyline disappear into the setting sun. Our cruise was underway. That night, we had a delicious dinner at the Polo Grill, a themed restaurant that embodies all the elements of a classic steakhouse, with white linen tablecloths, dark wood furnishings, and supple high-back burgundy leather chairs. Like last year, the food was delicious, and as you can see, Oceania does a really nice job with the presentation. The next morning, we arrived at Key West, an island at the southernmost tip of the Florida Keys. Although part of Florida, it's actually closer to Cuba than Miami. The first European to visit the island was Juan Ponce de Leon in 1521. Between then and now, the gingerbread mansions and tin-roofed conch houses have been home to Ernest Hemingway, Tennessee Williams, Robert Frost, and many others. We didn't have any excursions planned in Key West, but we explored the city a bit and then stopped off for an authentic Cuban sandwich and some fried plantains. Before returning to the ship, we went to Kermit's for some key lime pie, which is made with key lime juice, egg yolks, and sweetened condensed milk in a pie crust. The next day, we were at sea. Fortunately, there is a lot to do on board the ship. You can play ping pong. You can play golf. You can watch the ocean while framed by 2 strangely phallic umbrellas. You can take selfies. Lots and lots and lots of selfies. High tea is another popular pastime on board. You can even get a milkshake with Grandma. That night, we ate in the grand dining room, but first we stopped by one of the lounges for some free cocktails. It was a good day. After Key West and our sea day, we sailed to Cozumel, Mexico. Cozumel is actually an island in the Caribbean Sea off the eastern coast of Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. All 6 of us signed up for a bus excursion, and our first stop was the site of a very old Mayan church. Next, we visited a scenic lookout with some breathtaking ocean views and a really delicious Coco Loco drink served in a coconut shell. Then it was off to a small factory where everyone got to sample some delicious tequila. Our final stop was a cultural center downtown where we got to see some authentic Mexican dancing. As we took our seats in the old theater, Autumn whispered to Melanie, "Do not volunteer me for anything. I mean it, Mom." Naturally, they picked her out of the audience anyway. After Autumn's virtuoso dance performance, Melanie and Grandma headed back to the ship while the rest of us grabbed some Mexican food. Autumn had tacos, and I had a really good chicken mole dish. Meanwhile, Mike appeared in an ad for Dos Equis.
I don't always drink beer, but when I do, I prefer Dos Equis. Stay thirsty, my friends.
Back at the dock, I took this shot. The other ship, though not as nice as ours, was almost the same size as the Riviera. That night, Autumn and Mike had a delicious meal at La Reserve. Like our experience last year, they said the food and presentation were incredible, except for the risotto dish, which seemed rushed and was a little undercooked. Our next stop was the nation-state of Belize, the only Central American country whose official language is English. From 1862 to 1973, the area went by the name of British Honduras. It became an independent Commonwealth realm in 1981, retaining Queen Elizabeth as head of state. John and Grandma took a bus to the ruins of an ancient Mayan city called Altan Ha. The site did not even come to the attention of archaeologists until 1963. The city was occupied for many centuries, from about 900 BC to 1000 AD. We had an excellent tour guide.
As immediately as a child is born, they would practice what they call head wrapping. They would place a flat board to the front of the child head and one to the back. And they would wrap that child head for approximately 5 to 6 years. As that child is growing, that child head started to shape like a corn or a corn, and that is beauty in the elite family.
Meanwhile, Autumn, Mike, and Grandpa explored some caves that were considered an entrance to the Mayan underworld, with a guide who was up all night at a Damian Marley concert and who might have been just a little bit stoned. To get to the caves, our intrepid explorers had to haul their transportation through the jungle. Here's Dad with the world's largest hemorrhoid pillow. It was so dark in the caves, everyone was given a head-mounted light. Autumn said they were underground for almost 45 minutes, and she remarked that it was easy to see why the Mayans thought it was a spiritual location. There was a little bit of a mishap when they were climbing out of the inner tubes at the end of their adventure. Here's a recreation of that event. First Autumn climbed out, then Mike, then it was Dad's turn. Yep, he disappeared under the water faster than a fart in a fan factory. That night we had dinner at the Italian-themed Toscana. Grandma wasn't a big fan of the octopus carpaccio, but overall we had a delicious meal. From Belize, we sailed to Roatan, the largest of Honduras' Bay Islands. Christopher Columbus came to Roatan on his 4th voyage in 1503. When we got off the ship, we were treated to a performance by some local musicians.
Excuse me, this is not a place for drumming!
Yeah, okay, whatever, you old hag. Once off the ship, Autumn and Mike headed to the beach, where Autumn, true to form, bought an empanada from some guy walking around with a cooler. While they enjoyed the sun and the waves, John, Grandma, and Grandpa took a bus to Gumbalimba Park on the west side of Roatan. Covering 20 acres, this beautiful beachfront park offers many diverse attractions, including an animal preserve and botanical gardens. Hey, Mom, you want a bird on your shoulder?
No, you want a bird on your shoulder.
While Mom hid from the birds and monkeys, Dad and I got up close and personal. Here's a strange little plant that would close up when touched. I named it Melanie. There was also a really interesting pirate cave with a beautiful plaster model of the island.
We're relocated right now on the map. We'll be here at Gumbalimba Park, which the name Gumbalimba came from a tree. And here on the island, This tree is used for medicine.
The park features a rope bridge that was actually a lot wobblier than it looks. Fortunately, all three of us made it across safely. Unfortunately, Dad was actually safer on the bridge. As soon as he stepped off it, he lost his balance and, well, here's a recreation of what happened next. Our next stop was Santo Tomas de Castilla, Guatemala. This Central American country was for centuries part of the Mayan civilization that extended across Mesoamerica. Some evidence suggests human presence as early as 18,000 BC. We didn't have any excursions planned, but a local resort called Amatique was offering day trips, so despite very little information, we decided to take a chance. It paid off. Amatique is a 5-star luxury resort with a huge pool, water slides, a private beach, a wet bar, and much, much more. We arrived at about 10 a.m., and for the first 4 hours, we had the entire resort to ourselves. They even had a turtle enclosure, which made Autumn very happy. She loves turtles. Actually, there were 2 others at the park that day having a really good time. No, not those 2. These 2. Come on, guys, get a room. That night we dined at Red Ginger, hands down the culinary highlight of the trip. Here's a picture of my spicy duck and watermelon salad. I had some of Autumn's miso-glazed Chilean sea bass, and every single bite caused the hair on the back of my neck to stand up. It was that good. The beef teriyaki was also delicious, and so tender you could cut it with a spoon. Our next stop was Costa Maya, Mexico, which has the highest concentration of Mayan archaeological sites and the largest existing Mayan population in Mexico. Around 6500 BC, the Native Americans in the area Captain said we couldn't dock due to swells, so this stop was canceled. That's okay, we'll be back. Our final destination was Georgetown. Founded in 1789, Georgetown is the oldest Catholic and Jesuit institution of higher education in the United States. The main campus... Wait a minute, this is wrong. Georgetown. Here we go. Georgetown is on Grand Cayman, the largest of the 3 Cayman Islands. Surprisingly, the islands were mostly uninhabited until the 17th century. After that, they were home to pirates, refugees from the Spanish Inquisition, shipwrecked sailors, and deserters from Oliver Cromwell's army in Jamaica. Melanie and Grandma stayed on the ship, while Grandpa, Mike, Autumn, and John took a tender for a snorkeling excursion that none of us will ever forget. We arrived on the island early due to the Costa Maya cancellation, so we spent the morning at 7 Mile Beach. It was beautiful. When it was time for our snorkeling expedition, we actually stopped at 2 different sites. At the first one, we were fortunate enough to see a stingray like this one. Next, we visited a shipwreck known as the Cali, a 4-masted schooner that sank just offshore in 1944. According to our guide, the captain of the Cali tried to outrun a hurricane and lost. In an effort to save the ship, he made an attempt to run it aground, but he burned out the new diesel engine and the ship sank anyway. To make matters even worse, the Cali was carrying rice in its hold, which expanded as the ship took on water and tore it apart at the seams. A few years later, the British Navy used way too many explosives to clear away the wreckage, and according to local legend, one of the masts wound up embedded beside the main road into town. They used it as a telephone pole for many years. Our final specialty restaurant was Jacques, and I'm happy to report that we had a much better experience this year. We had French onion soup, foie gras, and some really delectable desserts. Before heading back to our rooms, Melanie and I went out by the pool. Saturday was a sea day. Autumn and I got to spend a little time together, though it was kinda breezy on the top deck. The next morning, we sailed into the Miami harbor, and our trip was at an end. We traveled to lose ourselves, and we traveled to find ourselves. But for me, the wonder of travel is being able to spend time with the people I love in a new environment. It's about seeing them and the world in a different light and from a variety of new angles. Proust once wrote, "The real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes."